evening. I'm going to call the Board of Directors meeting to order, June 15th, 2022. Look at everybody here. Thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it. This is a general session as well as a budget hearing so that we can approve the budget. So let's stand for Pledge of Allegiance. The flag.
Where'd it go?
Did it get moved into the?
No, you cannot.
Can we put
Was it
Can we
used
put
for
one on the screen?
graduation?
I'll bring one of them.
Mike's got it.
This was supposed to be before graduation. Are we looking at this one?
Oh, yeah, we'll look at that one.
We'll look this way.
All right. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks for the quick action, Mr. Ware. Okay, first off, Denise, was the meeting properly notified?
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. We are to adoption of the agenda, and before I ask, I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda in the discussion area. Want to talk about board meeting days as we move forward. So more to come there, but I'd like to add that under discussion for meeting days for the school board meetings.
Discussion?
End of discussion. In the discussion.
In the discussion. Item
Yes.
G.
Item G. Any other potential adjustments?
Chair Idell, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Do we not need to do roll call?
Oh,
I'm a little confused.
getting all excited. I didn't want to forget to make that change.
Wait.
Let's not make that change yet.
Let's hold on that change for a second. Denise, can we get a roll call?
Absolutely. Director Walper,
Here.
Director Martinez,
Here.
Director Berman,
Here.
Director Johnston,
Here.
Director Wheeler,
Here.
Vice Chair Shibahara,
Here.
and Chair Rydell.
I am here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Adoption of agenda, I would like to add a discussion item to discuss board meeting days. What day of the week that we're going to do board meetings on a move forward basis.
Chair Idell, I would still like to approve the agenda with said additions.
Adjust. Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you for my lapse. Next up is item C, Board of Directors reports, and we will start with Director Walper.
I have nothing.
Right? Director Berman.
Sure. I'm glad there's so many people here tonight. I'll start with that. But got to go to graduation Saturday. I think we had planned for 1,200 people to come. I think it was well over that. Standing room only, great ceremony. Clocked in at 55 minutes. I think it started raining on the 60th minute.
That's right.
Great production and good job to the district setting it up.
Great.
That's all of it.
Thank you, Director Berman. Director Wheeler.
Couple things on the football field front. We're working as much as we can with the weather that God has given us lately, and that's slow. We have a couple big things that are going to hopefully take place next week, and then by the middle of July, we'll be able to hand it over to the contracted professionals to do the application of the rock, drainage, and the turf. On the school front here, we went on a field trip to North Fork and River Mill last week. It was awesome with the fifth graders from Clackamas River. I think we could spend about a week and a half there and still not take it all in, but that's just my opinion. And I don't think the school's gonna let that happen. And it was nice to be in the building. It was the first time I think I'd been in Clackamas River since pre-COVID. So it was nice to see teachers' faces, kids' faces. Everybody was happy with 1 week of school left. How couldn't they be? And I think that's it for tonight.
All right, thank you, sir. Director Martinez.
Not much other than, graduation as well. Just want to, send congratulations to our staff and team for putting out an awesome graduation. Everything seems to went pretty well, even though we had to accommodate a different location and because of the turf project. So really appreciate it to our staff, so.
Johnston.
I can't add to Director Berman's graduation remarks or Director Martinez. I'll just give a quick baseball update for all youth baseball, for all that are interested. We have several softball teams. 4 of them took home awards in the end of year softball season, which was amazing and more than ever before. 1 first place and 3 second place awards. And then we have 11 JVO teams. Those are 3rd through 8th grade teams that play competitive baseball. 11, I think is right. Anyway, 7 of them are better than 500 with 2 undefeated. So that's amazing, amazing group of boys and girls that are playing baseball and softball. Today I'm missing a choir concert at the middle school, which I wish I could be at because my daughter's singing, but I'm glad I'm here to listen, and thanks so many people for being here today.
Thank you for your service.
Vice Chair Shibahara.
You know, I think I just want to talk about graduation real quick and just thank everybody for all the flexibility and support. I just am amazed at what a great event was put on, and just continue to be impressed with our students and staff and community's resiliency and support with us as we navigate this new world of whatever's ahead of us. But I just want to say thanks, and yeah, congratulations to all the graduates and everything. It's really cool.
Okay. I will ditto everything for graduation, and also a shout out to the maintenance team and the facilities team. It's no small feat to get that put together, so thank you, in addition to all the other thanks and praise that's been given thus far. Middle school music concert, missing that tonight, but I do want to take this as an opportunity to celebrate the middle school music program. You know, it wasn't that long ago that that was not at a spot where we would it would be as enjoyable to watch. And Ms. Hubbard has done a fantastic job of rallying that building and really creating an environment where kids want to participate and can see some success. So kudos to her and the middle school group for really building that program back to where we know it could have been. Spring Fling was just here a week or so ago, so always great to see kids on stage performing, having fun. Also had an opportunity to chaperone the Safe Act party, so I've done that several times over the years. And so you can find me dealing blackjack in the casino room. If you don't know where that is, follow the noise. I'm hard to miss. It's a lively group. So, and then the last update, as the board is aware, probably about a month ago, Lisa Alves was here talking about their foundation and the event that they were putting on. So I had an opportunity to chat with her 2 weeks ago. And at that point in time, there's still more coming in, but they had raised about $54,000. That will be given back to students, graduating students for, scholarships, different things like that. So really excited about that success. I was at the event, put together a little family band at the Alves' request. So we were there. What a great event. A lot of energy, a lot of positive stuff coming out of it. So looking forward to that. That will be an annual event. They will also be doing additional events in the future. So if you're interested, definitely reach out and find when those are, because it'll be a great cause, obviously. So, and that's it. I think that's all I have. Okay. On to item D, strategic plan pillar reports, and up first is Scott Sullivan for student success.
All right, and as Scott makes his way up to the front to give a quick pillar report, I do want to just kind of kick this thing off by reminding our community and our board that 2 weeks ago, now we conducted a 90-day improvement cycle rollout of our school district. So to remind our board and our community, our board is keenly aware of it, but every single 90 days, our entire school district organization creates strategies and action plans in an effort to improve our student achievement, student success, as well as our employee engagement, our student engagement, and ultimately our parent satisfaction. And we want to make sure that the services that we're providing to our community is aligned with the mission, vision, and values of what the great Estacada and Eagle Creek community represent. And so ultimately, this 4-hour presentation can be seen on Estacada's YouTube channel. I want to thank Director Walper, who was a part of all of that. He was a true warrior, sitting through each and every single one of those and representing the board on behalf of that process. And so thank you for your participation in that. And just you're going to see a much quicker version from our pillar leaders, the people who are ultimately co-owners of each of the 5 pillars inside our strategic plan. So if you recall, 4 years ago, our school district created a 5-year strategic plan, and we said we were going to try to hit these marks by year 5. And slowly but surely, we're getting closer and closer to hitting those marks, and I'm proud of the overall achievement of our district as it encounters ups and downs of many different variants that are in our control and outside of our control. A couple points that I do want to highlight, as you can see in green, we established goals in early September in our first cycle of marks that we were attempting to hit. So you can see that things that are indicated in green are areas where we have already exceeded our goals and expectations. 2 important ones, and I think the most important one that our community will appreciate is, once again, for the 3rd consecutive year in a row, our audit has been clean with no findings, which means that the Estacada School District is doing a great fiscal job with the taxpayers' money and using it ethically, honestly, and in support of its children. And so that's always a goal for our school district, to do a great job with public monies, and our auditors found that to be the case as well. So we can hit that goal with sustainable finances and accountability inside our strategic plan. The second is our district services to our leaders and to our employees, as well as to our parents and community. Our goal is to score a 4.51 by next fall, so this is kind of the halfway mark. And right now, we're being reported at scoring a 4.66. So we are exceeding our service to our community and to our leaders for them to be successful in carrying out the duties of their roles and responsibilities. What you see as yellow is an improvement over the course of the last 90 days, but it is still short of our overall goal. So we're at the halfway mark. So this is a dipstick check of how we're doing as we move from fall to fall. So you can see, starting first with student achievement, our goal is for 85% of all of our students K-12 to demonstrate proficiency in 100% of their essential learning standards. Last year, we ended at 72%. This year, we're going to be ending at around 77%. While we are not quite there yet, nor is the school year over just yet, we have increased from where we were last year. So I can confidently tell you that our kids today are better than our kids were at the end of last year, at the end of the pandemic. So growth is coming, and we are still setting our bullseye high for that 85%. And then again, the areas that you can see are red are some areas that we took a dip. Employee engagement is one of those specific areas. Student engagement is another yellow where we did increase, but we're a little bit far from our mark. So our students are reporting higher engagement in these last 90 days. Parent satisfaction was at 3.99. It went down to 3.94. Our goal is to score a 4.09 by next October. So we do have some work to do in engaging our parents to make sure that we're meeting their needs when it comes to communication and our service and partnership as we are honored to educate their children. And then lastly, the area that I do want to point out is the category My School is Clean, which you can see last fall we scored a 3.87, and that went down to a 3.65. Now I do want to note that we think that 3.87 is a little artificially high because students were not in school last year. And so they do remember probably a nicer version of what that was like. Or maybe their room was clean, their classroom, which was their bedroom, was cleaner.
I highly doubt that.
Yeah, that can't be the case. Nonetheless, we have some work to do there because I think there is a disconnect between what the adults perceive as clean versus what the kids perceive as clean. And so all of our building leaders right now are conducting and in the process of conducting some focus groups and some different data collection opportunities from the voice of our kids so that we can make sure that they're feeling like their learning environment and facilities are clean. It goes without saying that our buildings are 1950s and 1960s. And so that's a tremendous challenge in terms of making sure that things are up to date and upkept for our students to achieve that experience. But that's there. So that's kind of the highlight version. So as you can see here, what you're going to see from our pillar leaders is a shorter, detailed version of each and every single one of these pillars, from student success to a strong, inclusive, and collaborative culture, engaged families and community, up-to-date buildings and facilities, and sustainable finances. But from a overall district perspective, here's how we're doing 90 days later from the goals that we created. With that said, Mr. Sullivan?
Good evening.
Good evening.
You've seen this slide before. Those of you who joined us at the 90-day will be seeing some updated information, but a lot of it will be very similar to what we did the other couple weeks ago. As Mr. Carpenter shared with you, our student success goal for student learning has to do with trying to get every one of our students, or 85% of our students, to meet 100% of their essential learning standards identified by the teachers and professional learning communities in our school district. In order to meet that goal, we did a lot of work after our last survey and the work we did last school year. And one of the things we figured out that we needed to do, and we're going to call those wins here, is we needed to identify better data that provides us with leading indicators as opposed to lagging indicators. Data that's going to help us react more quickly to make changes that will affect upcoming data. The data we were using was data that was done at the end of the year, long ago. It wasn't something that we could really react to. So we developed a new dashboard and created 3 areas of focus. One was to identify our students' proficiency towards essential learning standards. 2 was to identify students who have attendance that is 70%, 79% or below. And 3, we wanted to identify the work completion of our students. And we, again, this dashboard is going to tell us those students at 79% and below. Why we picked these 3 areas of focus is because the University of Chicago and some other groups have studied it, and these are 3 key indicators that show projected student success in high school and beyond. And so we wanted to focus on that, and some of those we can get the data a lot more quickly and focus and make some adjustments. So we did that. We got the dashboard together. We were able to look at this data every week and make adjustments. And all of this data we could look at building-wide, district-wide, classroom-wide, well, not classroom-wide, but grade level-wide, as well as individual students. As you can see, here's a sample of some of the data it pulls. There's a lot of the data. This is just a quick overview, but this is showing you the number of students who are not at 80% and above. So what you want to see is a downward trend. And you'll see at the beginning of the school year, we were pretty high in students not meeting their essential learning standards. But over time, you could see that we have increased quite a bit, especially in our elementary levels. We have very few students not meeting 100% or 80% or more of their standards. This next one, you want to see the graph go upwards. So the trend you want to see is upwards. And this is a new graph that we actually just adapted and added about a month and a half ago, I would say, out of some desire to try to get a better picture. This identifies the number of kids that are currently meeting our goal of 100% proficiency. And we have, as you can see, 90% at CRE and 84% at Rivermill. We have a lot of students in our elementary schools who are right there at or above our goal line. You'll also see that our secondary students are quite a bit behind, but those graphs are continuing to rise, and this data was last taken 2 weeks ago, and there has been a lot of push in the last 2 weeks of school. Another piece of the data is we want to identify, okay, we know this big idea, but who are the kids that are really close? This graph tells us who they are. This tells us how many there are, but we also can dig down and identify who they are. We're able to identify which kids are just 10% away, 20% away, or further. And we use this kind of information to adjust on the fly to do two things: provide quick interventions and assistance for those kids who are close. Those kids who are more in the, I think it's red, it might be orange level, we're trying to provide them new foundational background support to help them get there longer term. So we've had a lot of wins in terms of this goal of student learning. However, as Mr. Carpenter shared earlier, we are not there yet. However, we have been able to hold bi-weekly meetings with our building leaders to talk about the data and really pinpoint next steps. We've been meeting also every 2 weeks as a whole group of building leaders to talk and brainstorm together. And we are, as you can tell by those graphs, closing the gap. However, we do have some barriers. And one of those barriers is still trying to identify how our system can get data in the hands of the people who need it to make quicker changes. That there's still a lag. Instead of months lag, it's still there, maybe week, 2 week lags of taking the data and actually making some adjustments. So that is one of our barriers, and that's one of our things that we're going to target for next year. And the other big barrier that I identified was that we're still having some folks in our system not accepting that all kids are our kids. We're still saying, me as a social studies teacher might say, I'm only worried about the kids I have in my class. We need the whole system to attack and address and help support every one of our kids. So there's a mindset we're trying to shift there. Big next steps is deepen our focus on data. And one of the ways we're going to do that is to increase the use of PDSAs, or Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles throughout the system, including down to the student level. That is our ultimate goal. It'll take a little while to get there, but we're trying to bring more data to the classroom that's immediate and could make immediate change in differences. Some other big wins, I will share that our PLC department, our original goal was to have a 3.96 in our PLC survey. We are currently midway point at a 3.98. So we're there, but we have to maintain that because we still have a half year to go. So I just want to let you know that we are making some progress in that. And I wanted to share some of the quotes to celebrate what some of our teachers are saying about our time working as professional learning communities. Here's an anonymous teacher, and I took this quote, and they stated, "The amount of time we have to PLC is very helpful. The amount of opportunities to collaborate with my PLC team is helpful in ensuring my ability to meet the learning needs of my students." That time is time that you provided for them when you provided shortened days on Wednesdays and next year are Fridays. And I just wanted you to know that our teachers appreciate that and they recognize it and they're using it to good use. However, there are barriers. One of those barriers, effectively onboarding all of our new staff. We continue to have new staff, and getting them up to speed is always a challenge when you have so much that you have to do in August, and then our teachers and the rest of our staff are so busy working with kids, and to keep that sustained training has been difficult, and we're going to continue to work on that, and we're doing some new onboarding for this coming year, and we're doing some new planning, hopefully to address that. And we do have some staff that have other thoughts on our PLC process that I thought would also be fair to share. One quote from a staff member was that our PLC does not hold other PLC team members accountable. Again, that's a mindset, that's a culture that we're trying to foster, is that they'll work together, collaborate, hold each other accountable to a common goal. Another member stated, "Negative peer attitudes and others not willing to listen to others takes place in some of our PLC time." We don't know where these are or who these people are, but we do know that we are going to continue to grow and teach the process of DeFore model PLCs, because that's part of the DeFore model PLCs. Every year, you're going back and revisiting, and moving forward. Next steps for our PLCs is continued training of new and existing staff, and also working with our instructional coaches and our building leadership, who are principals and vice principals, to add additional supports to those teams that might be struggling in mindset and/or helping the students get to our goals. That is a quick,
Thank you.
brief.
A lot of info. Questions for Scott?
I have a quick question. On the second graph, when you talk about learning standards proficiency, there are big jumps and decreases. I mean, I'm sure you evaluate it, and I don't need to know it, but is there points in time where we're evaluating what happens and why we're taking those big jumps or why we're taking those big dips in proficiency?
Yeah, and I think if you're referring especially to the beginning of the year,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a couple that dropped and a couple that raised
Yeah.
up really high. And
you'll look at those dates, and sometimes some of those, I don't know if you want that answer now.
Yeah.
But sometimes in the middle of the year, some of those might equate with before or after a grading period or a holiday. And there might be a lag and the data being updated and current. Beginning of the year, we are assessing our kids right out of the bat with high levels of expectations, and we're doing a lot of pre-assessment, and we're identifying that kids where they're at so that we can identify where we need to go with them. So the beginning of the year, not only does the system have to kick in, our students have to kick in, our teachers have to kick in, our leaders have to kick in, everyone has to kick in to get the train moving, and that takes a little bit of time. And that's probably not a good definition, but that beginning of the year, we're noticing that we are probably assessing, I don't want to use hard-nosed, but assessing very firm and strict and with higher expectations than what should really be for the first 2 or 3 weeks of school. Does that make any sense?
it does. I would see like a dip might have been introduction of new standards that were automatically ones or twos, right? Because they don't know the concept or haven't learned the concept yet. So that makes sense.
And many of them are year-long standards.
Sure.
So beginning of the year, they're not going to be there.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, you're welcome.
I love this visual just very fast because it truly tells a story of improvement, right? And if you look at this, this tells the story of the gaps that we had to close at the beginning of the year as we respond from COVID and where we're at today. So while we're not yet on target, you can see here that we have changed lives in terms of getting more and more kids over the bar.
So congrats, CRE.
Yeah, CRE and Rivermill are killing it right now.
I'd also just call out, Scott, I appreciate the barriers and being intentional and owning those barriers, right? That's a vulnerable spot to be. And so I can, from my behalf, I appreciate you going to that space and really being honest with what needs to change and how we can do it better. So thank you very much for that.
I have a question before you leave. One of the barriers was that our PLC does not hold the other PLC members accountable. What does that culture look like if you're talking about third grade, fourth grade teachers, whatever it is, and there's somebody that's just not jiving? Whose responsibility? Is it the building leader? Is there a captain in the PLC group? Or I mean, what does that look like?
That's a good question. The concept and the belief is that they monitor themselves. Beginning of the year, they develop norms of how they'll work together. If somebody's not doing it, we hope that they will work it out. If not, sometimes our instructional coaches go in to assist and ask some probing questions. Worst case scenario, our administration should get involved and address those behaviors and talk about how to improve the system. So there's multiple layers to that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Inclusive Culture with Jason Hobson and Kelly Hayes.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right, so this pillar is, as you all know, is 3 different opportunities to hear our students, listen to our employees, and then our district services. So I'm going to talk about student engagement, and Kelly's going to talk about employee engagement and district services. So just like we said, we just recently went through our 90-day rollout, little temperature check, and so I wanted to highlight a couple of wins that our students are telling us. And one of the big ones is that that they are recognizing that principals are great leaders. They also are saying that learning is important in their school. And that went from was scored a 4.62, which is a 0.28 improvement over the fall. And then this was a big focus area for this year, was deepening our goal setting into the classroom. And students are telling us, I set learning goals and track my progress, and that scored a 4.34, which was a 0.6 improvement, which is really cool. So while we took a little bit of dip from the fall, we are very close to our target line. So I am really confident with the new leader action plans that our leaders are going to be rolling out, that next fall, when we have our summative, we are going to reach our goal. While we had lots of wins, we also recognized that we had some barriers. And our students told us what some of their barriers were through some of their behaviors and the way that they were approaching school. And so we recognized that it was difficult for students to come back from a pandemic and created those positive student routines. Student stamina overall was a little bit tough. And then another barrier is just collecting that data that gives us real-time data on how things are going. So next steps for our student engagement: deepen our opportunities to hear how our students are experiencing school, taking that voice and then creating opportunities for students to get more engaged in how they are experiencing and providing that feedback to our school leaders. And one of the things that I like to think about is, as a pillar leader, is helping the leaders create action plans and steps so that we can answer and fill in a statement like this, creating data measures to complete the sentence. We know this action step is effective because, and then they can fill that in with data and says, here's how I know that this is being effective. So we're excited about collecting that student voice and continuing to strengthen that. Any questions about student engagement before I turn it over to Callie? Great. Yep. Perfect. Do you want, we can swap.
You want to swap?
Sure.
We can swap. Okay.
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs real quick? Okay. So in employee engagement, we set a goal to reach a 4.28 in the fall of '22. We're currently sitting at a 4.15. Our fall score was a 4.23, and so we have dipped down a little bit. But we do have several wins that we want to celebrate, and one of them is that we know now the actions that we had been taking were not having direct correlation to the improvement in the overall score, and so we can abandon those actions and start to make new action plans. This has been a theme throughout the last 90 days, and we are excited to have this data on the table and be able to make those adjustments. We're also excited to share that during this time that we were recognized by the Oregonian as a top workplace for the second year in a row, the only school district in the state of Oregon to do that. We also had a 98% participation rate from staff in our employee engagement survey, which is huge, and we are really thankful and grateful to have that participation. Our employees have determined that the biannual survey collection is an avenue for collaboration and providing input, ensuring all voices are being heard. Click, okay. Oop. No, sorry. A barrier throughout the last 90 days has been focused again on that data collection, how to best capture it, and then making those quick adjustments. We even saw sometimes where we were collecting the data and it showed that we were on target to meet our goal, but then when the survey time came, the numbers didn't quite align. So in our next 90 days, we're looking at honing in on those key data measurements and really focusing in on what exactly we need to do, the small, quick adjustments and small, quick wins that we need to have to improve our scores overall. We'll also be continuing to celebrate the small wins. In district services, we're currently an increase, like Superintendent Carpenter mentioned at the beginning, an increase of 0.15, and we want to celebrate that. All 11 departments that get a score in district services scored between a 4.41 and a 4.79. And we had 70.9% of all responses that came in score as very good, which is the highest service rating that we can get. So that's huge for us. Some barriers throughout the district services were the question of our action plans, are they being connected to the big aim? Are we creating the right plans to engage the students? Are we hardwiring our standards of excellence throughout our departments? And how do we support leaders in measuring improvement in classrooms and cycles of improvement? We also noted that rounding sessions could be more collaborative, ensuring we are on the right track. And then again, do we have the right measurement tools? If we have learned one thing throughout this last 90 days, it is that a shift in mindset, it's a shift in our mindset that failing forward is okay, and it's an incredible gift to help us improve along the way. The next 90 days will focus on utilizing barriers to create opportunities, dive deeper into the leader action plans, break them down, and focus on the measurements, big and small, to bring the data to the table sooner. With a rating, though, with 4.66, our employees are telling us that what we're doing is working, so we will be continuing the level of service and support no matter what. It is more important now than ever. Our continuous work is going deeper into the organization. We want to thank everybody for their leadership, participation, and service, and we are proud to work alongside our teams, our employees, and our school board.
Any questions?
You guys have so much. I'm just trying to like take it all in. I'm like, I have so many questions, I don't even know where to start, but I'm gonna make you go back a minute though. I think for me, what I'm most interested in is a little bit more around some of the next steps. Like around student engagement, it says something about, engaging students in leader action plans and creating student focus groups. So this is about trying to collect the student voice as part of like they want to have a more engaged experience at school and what's gonna help with those positive routines, stamina, things like that. Is that kind of how that's all tying together?
You got it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So exactly, one of the key components is gathering that student voice and having them be a part of the solution. Like, here's what you told us we need to improve on. How do you think that we can, as leaders, work together to do that?
And like,
so-
what is clean to me? Well, it's
Yes.
different, for, it's kind of the same kind of thing.
So in the student engagement, one of the areas is that students show respect to each other. And so in particular, like at the high school, the counselors have brought together a variety of different focus groups and are asking them, like, this is what you're saying, tell us about that, and what can we do together with students to help create things that will help support that idea of students being respectful to each other. Yeah, so that's a great example, but you had it, yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
How do you gather this information?
Which, the student engagement?
Student or employee engagement, either one.
Yeah.
How do you gather
Good.
that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the students are provided a survey that they take at school, that they answer, the questions
Right.
on the same scale, 1 to 5, and it's a variety, and it's diverse. It's differentiated between elementary and secondary. So they have similar questions, but they're you can answer them differently if you're kindergartner versus high school.
And then I'm assuming you have a data entry point and you have a program that,
It actually goes to a third-party organization, and that they provide the results back.
who's that?
Studer Education.
Studer, okay.
For employee engagement and district services, it's similar to that, but we also use our rounding data. So we have our qualitative data that we're gathering, and our rounding is a quick check-in that we do with each other, with our employees, to see what things are working well, what barriers they might be facing, what assistance might be needed, and any checking in on data. We also have, our administrators often use a pulse check or a survey on a weekly or bi-weekly basis with our leadership teams to check in. So, okay, I said we would provide more expectations to our staff. Is that being clear to you? We'll check in with our leadership team, find out if that is happening, and if not, helping utilize our leadership teams as well to answer those questions. So we kind of gather it all together to help us.
And then you get a report from Studer.
And then we get the report from Studer. Yep.
And what does Studer charge us?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Next up, engage families and communities. Maggie Kelly.
Good evening, school board. I'm just going to scooch this a little closer.
Good evening.
So I'm going to provide the pillar update for the engaged families and community pillar, and then a quick communications update. So in the engaged families and community pillar, similar to some of the other pillars, we have our parent engagement survey that goes out twice a year. In the spring, we saw a bit of a downturn. We had a 4.02 in our fall survey, and we went down to a 3.96 in the spring. Our goal is to get a 4.07 in the fall of 2022. So that goal is within sight, but there is definitely going to have to be intentional work that is done to honor what our parents have given us as feedback. So even though there's a lot of work to be done, I did want to recognize some of the wins and some of the things that have gone right in this intentional work. So some of the wins for both the statements, "My child is recognized for good work and behavior at school," and the statement, "I receive positive phone calls, emails, and notes about my child from school," both of those statements increased from the fall to the spring. That second one was one of our two lowest scoring items in the fall, so that substantially increased. So that's evidence of the actions that we're committed to working on that, and that is no longer one of our two lowest scoring items. I wanted to mention like a quick story about why the actions that we've committed to are important. So in that positive phone calls and emails statement, I was rounding with the transportation department, and they mentioned that one of the actions that they've committed to is the bus drivers calling home and letting families know when their children are exhibiting positive behaviors on the bus. Maybe there was an improvement there, a child that's been struggling to interact with other kids positively on the school bus, bullying, some of those issues. When a student improves, they're calling home and recognizing that so that the parents know. And they mentioned that one bus driver in particular had a pretty rocky relationship with a family and a student. The family was really struggling on the bus. And they consistently called home every time there was a small improvement in behavior. And because of that, the bus driver says this is one of their most rewarding relationships now. They ran into the family at the grocery store. The kid loves his bus driver. I just wanted to highlight this story because this is why we commit to those type of actions and why we're seeing growth in that area. Another win is that the district and building leaders have gotten creative with their methods of communication. We know we're a geographically big district of 750 square miles. People are driving dozens of minutes to get to the schools. So how can we provide an experience for them even if they're not able to make it to school or into the classroom? So we've been utilizing Facebook Live events. Both our building leaders and our district leaders have been doing Facebook Live events, and these events average 800 plus views per event. And this is a tremendous win because there are few events that we see more than 800 people show up in person to learn about these things. And there's a variety of events from how the district is doing financially to, I saw one the other week on how you can prepare your fifth grader for a smooth transition into sixth grade. So this is just one way we've been creative in engaging with families. Now, as I talked about, we saw a decrease. So what are the barriers that we're facing? One of the barriers we saw is that the survey participation rate went down. It decreased by around 12% from our fall survey to our spring survey. We averaged about 35% of our families taking the survey, which normed across other school districts when they take surveys is very average, but we have no interest in being average. We want to be premier, so we have some work to do there, and we want to see that grow again. The survey participation was down across all demographics, so we definitely have work to do. And I'll discuss some next steps on how we can work on that in the next slide. Another score decline, as I mentioned, the overall score went down, and then the lowest scoring item, which is I regularly receive feedback on how well my child is learning, which is one of our core tenets of communication, did decrease, and that is an item that we continue to struggle with. And then additionally, a barrier that some other pillars have mentioned as well, but collecting frequent data aside from just these surveys twice a year, because we need to know when something is going wrong with our families before months have gone by and they're struggling to connect with our schools. We want to know about that now so we can put actions in place to prevent that now. So as I mentioned those barriers, some of the next steps that we're committing to is utilizing parent rounding as a tool to collect that data. Instead of just relying on those big surveys, hardwiring in
secretaries calling over to families and saying, how is it going? Your kid's been in school for a month now. Tell me about the process. Having a customer-oriented approach and picking up the phone and making those one-on-one connections is one way that we can collect data and see how things are going early on from the get-go. And then another next step that our buildings are committing to is continuing to strengthen the ties between the classroom and home. We see that over and over again, that our parents want to know what's happening in the classroom and how well their child is doing in the classroom. So not just focusing on the quantity of the communications, but the quality. If a teacher reaches out to a family, let's check back in. Did they get what they needed? Let's have a secretary call up and say, hey, I know you had a meeting with this teacher last week. Was that successful? Did you get what you needed? And just making sure that those communications are effective. And then lastly, increasing parent exposure to the continuous improvement work. One of the reasons that we believe that we're seeing low survey participation is that our families don't always trust that when we hear their feedback that we will put it into action. So continuing to communicate why hearing from them is so important, and really making it evident that when we hear from them and when we get their feedback that we actually take action on what they're telling us to do. So that's important work that will have to continue. And then another way we hope to increase survey participation is just showing up at events. We know that there is no time that is more packed than a Friday night football game. So are those the type of events that we can utilize to have a laptop out front and the ability to take a survey after the game? I think we could be creative in these type of ways to help increase the participation, because that parent feedback is really key. So we want to make sure that we get that. I'll quickly transition into the June communications report and then take any questions you guys have. It's a busy time before the end of the year. Some projects that are in progress right now, and after writing this, we have some that have been checked off, so I'll talk about those a little bit as well. We are, of course, transitioning our website over the summer. It's going well. Everything is on track and in progress. Graduation preparation, of course, we completed graduation. We had almost 2,000 people show up in person, and we had almost 2,000 people view the 3 videos that we produced for graduation. Our ceremony, the awards ceremony, and then our highlights video have almost 2,000 views so far. So it's always heartwarming. You hear stories from aunts in Indiana that weren't able to make it that are so glad that they're able to see that special event. So we're glad to be able to provide that and make it special for families. We're working on improving our live streaming capabilities, particularly in this space and some of our other spaces, just making sure that it is consistent so we can reliably and transparently always broadcast things like board meetings that we know we want to be accessible to our community. So we're doing some upgrades there over the summer. And then when we were working as quickly as possible to get some student and staff footage for some projects that we're working on over the summer, we have lots of photos of kids in masks and videos of kids in masks, and we're tired of it. We want to get a lot of videos of real smiling faces before we close out the school year. And then lastly, completed projects, our 90-day rollout production. As we presented some of this work to the community, it has over 600 views, so we're really excited that the community was able to see evidence of some of that continuous improvement work. As I talked about, that's how we can help our community buy into some of this. And then additional completed projects, our summer program promotion. We have had almost 200 students sign up for our summer programs that we have offered via Parent Choice, which is an exciting thing to offer. So that has been going well, and we look forward to getting footage of that over the summer because the work never ends, even over the summer. And then additional video series installments we put out recently, updates in our construction, in our finances, and in our standards-based grading series that have been all well received by the community and have gotten more views than previous installations. So we keep seeing that audience continue to grow, which is exciting. I know that's a lot. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Maggie. Next up, Buildings and Facilities Report, Mr. Mike Ware.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
As before, we'd like to start off with a quick overview of the last 90 days of our up-to-date buildings and facilities. In the fall of 2021, we set a goal to score a 3.98 on the My School is Clean question in the student engagement survey. As noted earlier, we have some work to do or some opportunities for improvement, as the data is showing us that we're a little bit below that goal. However, there are some wins to celebrate throughout the last 90 days. Our building leaders and their team created intentional actions to support the overall goal. Our elementaries implemented a program to engage students on cleaning their areas, such as classrooms, the restrooms, and the cafeterias. The operations department collaborated with the communications department to engage our community through monthly video communication on capital improvement projects. And we also saw some growth from all those actions. You can see that our CRE at Clackamas River went from a 3.98 in the fall to a 4.07. And the Estacada Middle School went through a 3.57 in the fall to a 3.55 to a 3.57. Now, that is a small growth and a small win, but small wins are worth celebrating because it increases engagement. So we like to take those opportunities to celebrate. Some of the barriers, making the connection to the why. Why are we asking you to clean areas in your classroom? How do we know what we're doing is working? What are the direct links to help promote change? We know we had a lot of viewership from our monthly videos, but is it creating a change in perception of our buildings and the cleanliness of our buildings? Ultimately, the evidence is telling us that what we implemented didn't work all the way, which is a great fail forward. And so now we have some next steps or some opportunities. Again, next steps, collecting student voice. We started collecting high school students' voice in open forums, connecting the why to our actions. Why are we promoting up-to-date buildings and facilities? Why is it important to have a clean classroom when we know it has a direct result to teaching and learning? Leveraging our building teams, how our vice principals, our teachers, our lead custodians supporting this work and deepening the system. We want to continue making adjustments to our current actions so they're micro-focused, so they're very specific. Leverage the system and not the people, and then follow that 80-20 rule, where 20% of our actions has an 80% results or increases. That was a really quick review. So I'm going to go into operations report. And we're going to talk about our capital improvement projects. And it is amazing what we can do when we have nice weather. In an about 3-week process, we hauled out about 800 truckloads of dirt in a very, very effective way. And now we are done with that mass excavation. We are ready to do concrete treatment, which we had scheduled for this week. Unfortunately, the weather is really challenging us this year. And so we've pushed it off another week. Additional work will be beginning towards the end of the month, which is preparing our scoreboard, footings, as well as the flag and our lighting equipment will be arriving towards the end of the month. So we're still progressing well. I'm happy on how we're doing it. Again, a big thank you to our community for supporting this project because it is a community project for sure. Mm-hmm. Our high school gym floor, the plumbing repairs are now complete, and the material has been started to get installed into the floor at the gym. We are expected to be done by the end of the month, but we're running into some barriers with the humidity that we're experiencing and we have experienced. The gym has a little bit of a higher humidity count than we would like, and it's causing the wood to kind of swell up a little bit. So we have to bring down that humidity so we can properly install the gym floor. So we have a little bit of hiccup, but we're still on schedule for the end of the month, barring any major unknowns. We're also looking into some accessory work, increasing or improving our lighting, as well as improving the side basketball hoops and a few other projects while we're doing this project. Our North Complex project, we released the RFP last month. Unfortunately, to date, we haven't received any interest in this RFP. So my next step is working with some local community members to see if we can get some support to just start some phases of this project. This is very important to what our development of the North Complex, so we have proper parking and ease of access to all the ball fields and the space back there for our community, for our youth organizations, and for our district. Hopefully more to come next month. And then as an update or follow-up from Director Johnson, last month, I believe was asked about our trends in our help desk tickets. You can see from the current operating month, which is month of May, this is data from month of May of the tickets completed at each of the buildings district-wide, as well as our 3-year trend. You can see that we are trending pretty high for this year. We have a little bit of a decrease compared to this year in 2019, but again, that was at the height of COVID and us responding to needs of our families at home. But again, overall, very satisfied on how our service is being provided to our stakeholders, our students, through the IT department. And that's your operations report. Any questions?
Questions for Mike?
Thanks
All
for,
right.
thanks
Thank
for
you.
following up on that. That's amazing.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, last pillar report, finance and accountability, Christina Irish.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm first going to present on the sustainable finances and accountability pillar for the 90-day rollout. We have two goals in this pillar. The first is the employee engagement to score a 4.08 on the superintendent manages district finances. And the second is that we have 0 findings on our annual audit. Our wins in this pillar is we were able to maintain a healthy fund balance going into the 2021-22 school year at 22%. This allowed for us to offer hiring incentives to our bus drivers, to have a higher sub rate to help during the COVID pandemic and the staffing shortages, and to hire additional staffing to support our staffing shortages and to provide additional support to our students. And then we also had a win in finding different ways to share district's finance story. Some of these ways are our monthly finance update. We had the superintendent roadshow, which he went and shared the district's finances with key departments and also the Estacada City Council. And we also have been keeping regularly updates on our ESSER 3 spending. The final, which Superintendent Carpenter mentioned earlier, we did receive 0 findings in our 2020-21 audit. For our barriers, on our employee engagement survey, we did score a 3.082, which dropped from 403 on the superintendent manages district finances. Why this can be discouraging, we are taking this as an opportunity to adjust and make look at the leader actions plans, which we'll be following up on my my next slide. Another is finding different ways to communicate about the different pots of money and how those pots can be used, such as how is the turf being funded? Is this being taken away from the teachers? Another barrier is, as you've heard, collecting the right data. We found that when we were doing our pulse checking, information was coming in higher than when the actual survey came out.
Just to clarify, it's not coming from the teachers. Kind of left that floating
No,
out there.
this
I just
is-
wanted to make sure.
Yes, it is not coming from the teachers. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
The next step, we're going to work with the leaders and the department, the leaders and administrators to review their current action plans and to learn where we can make adjustments and find different ways of measurements. We're going to ask more questions to our roundings, the whys, whats, and hows, dig in to try to see where we can make adjustments. And then we're learning, going to look into streamlining services to improve financial transparencies. Some of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to do some how-to videos to help employees learn how to use some of our financial systems. And we're also looking to streamline some of our quotes process and some of our other forms. Any questions on the pillar before I move on to the monthly financial update?
Any questions? Good.
Okay, I have to put on my glasses now. So for the month of May, our month-to-date revenue was $526,726, and our monthly expenses was just over $2.8 million. Our year-to-date revenue is $39.9 million, and our year-to-date expenditures is just under $27.7 million. We're projecting a revenue of $40.12 million and expenditures of $35.14 million. This will bring us to an ending fund balance of $4.98 million. Of the revenue, you can see the projected The projected revenue, 60% of that is state school fund, 20% of that is local revenue, and 18% of that is our beginning fund balance. This is a slide comparing last year at this time compared to this year this time. One thing I'd like to talk about is at the bottom, last year we were projecting to add back 2.7 million to the ending fund balance, which is how we started with a higher beginning fund balance, and we were able to do all those additions to meet our COVID needs. This year, we're projecting to spend down 2.2 million. So just a reminder, those ads were temporary ads, so just wanted to bring that in. So that is that difference. And this is looking at our budget to actuals. So in instructional services, you'll see here that we had a budget of 23.3 million. Our year-to-date is 76.5% of that. Our year-to-date plus our encumbrances is 91.3% of that. Our year-to-date, or our budget for support services is 12.2 million. We spent 80.6% of that. And with encumbrances, we're at 95%. So just wanted to kind of bring that up and point that out because I am bringing a budget resolution a little bit later where you'll see the difference that I'm going to be asking to move some of the money from instruction to support services.
Really quick, Christina, before you go past this, because we're coming up on the end of the fiscal year. So when you think about those encumbrances, how close to where we are right now do you think we'll land?
Yeah, so great question. We did have a PO cutoff in May, but there are, of course, things that come in an emergency only. So encumbrances are pretty close, maybe within 100,000 or
Couple
less.
percent?
Yeah,
Okay.
not very high. So we are not adding a lot of new POs in June,
Awesome, thank you.
unless it's an emergency. And then the community services, we have not spent anything. And other uses will be our transfers, which we will do this month. And this is by major object. You'll see here total revenues for last year at this time was 39 million, and we're at 39.9 million, so that's a difference of 914,000. Our total expenditures last year at this time was 26.2 million. We're at 26.6 million, which is a difference of 1.4 million. So the difference between our revenue and our expenditures is 580,000. And year-to-date expenditures by major objects, 36% of our expenditures are salaries, 20% are our associated payroll costs, and 38% is our purchase services, which includes our contracts, our charter school payments. So 94% of our expenditures are fixed cost or contracted cost. Capital projects, this is where the turf fund is being funded. You'll see here that we had incoming revenue of 1,751, outgoing expenditures of 131,000. Our year-to-date revenue is 2.9 million. Our year-to-date expenditures are 748,000. We're still at this point projecting a revenue of 2.8 million and expenditures 2.2 million, assuming that the turf is completed or that will roll into next year. So that would bring us down to 608,000. Enrollment. So enrollment for our CRE is 416, which is one more than last month at this time and 11 more than last year at this time. Rivermill is at 442, which is 2 more than last month at this time, and 11 less than last year at this time. Estacada Middle School is at 403, which is 4 more than last month and 7 less than last year at this time. And then Estacada High School is at 490, which is down 7 from last month, but up 11 from last year at this time. So that brings us to a total of 1,751, which is exactly where we were last month, but still up 4 from last year. And no updated enrollment from Summit, so they're still showing 1,324, which brings us to 3,075, which is great news because we are still higher at this point than we have been ever for May. We have not had a big drop, which has been a historical for us, so very exciting. That is all I have, unless there's any questions.
I have a question on the enrollment side. Used to be Kindergarten Roundup. I know it's got a fancier name now. Did we start getting projections on that yet?
Yeah, and we've already had kindergarten roundup at both sides. Usually it's an indicator we predict of half, so as many people as show up to kindergarten roundup, we double that as our projection to who's coming. We had roughly the same amount, about 45 kids at each location signed up for and participated in kindergarten roundup. So we do anticipate roughly between 70 and 75 kinders coming into each school district, so about 150. And while it's great that we have 150 potential kids coming into our school district, it is less than we're expecting, considering that we think that there's a younger family boom. And so given what we know has moved into our community, there's a lot of unknowns in terms of trying to predict it. But we did budget for 3 kindergarten teachers at each school, which should hold the capacity of around 75 kids in each. And in this budget that's up for approval this evening does give the school district the flexibility to hire an emergency kindergarten teacher if that boom in fact does occur.
And if our graduating class says it's 110 and we're bringing in 150, and that's a plus 40, right?
Correct. Yeah, so as we all know, people who've been in the community a long time, since 2008, really as people moved out of the Estacada School District, this is kind of the last remaining lowly numbered class that's moved through our system. So really from this point forward, we're going to see capacity issues move through our
Christina,
systems.
can you go back one slide? Because it'll be just for folks that are sitting here and looking. You can see those total class size averages, right? So seniors is the lowest class, juniors is the second lowest class. As you just move to the left, we get into the 140s, 150s, 160s as that class sizes grow. And so, yeah, we anticipate that that will continue on that trend.
Thank you.
Anything else for Christina? All right. Thank you, pillar leaders. Next up is superintendent's report.
Thank you. This is a little bit of a more special superintendent's report today, as there's a couple people that are in the audience that I'd like to specifically honor to get started in the superintendent's report. So if I could kindly ask Angel Rutherford just to come to the front right here for just a quick second. Angel Rutherford is a third grade teacher at Clackamas River Elementary School, and she is one of our most prized possessions inside the Estacada School District, not only because she's been in the district for several years and have changed and impacted the lives of probably literally thousands at this point, but I wanted to bring Angel to our school board tonight because the school board of directors and I would like to congratulate you. Angel Rutherford was named the American Legion Teacher of the Year for 2022. So I'd like to give Angel a big round of applause. Angel's impact is great, and as we asked a few teachers about Angel, they obviously had a lot of opinions about Angel in a lot of different directions, but some of the great things that they said about Angel is her humor, her just great teamsmanship. She's a great teammate, is how people reply to her, and she's just an awesome educator. From the words of the principal and vice principal at Clackamas River, Angel is awesome, is what they say, and I think that her kids and our community would definitely echo those statements as well. So Angel, would you like to say anything?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to work in the district for the past 27 years, and I graduated from Estacada.
Wow.
So it's been nice to serve my community, and it's been a pleasure to teach your children. And
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Angel Rutherford, everybody. Thank you very much. Angel is awesome. I'd also like to invite up Lori Dyson to the front of the room. If you could come on up, Lori. Lori Dyson is one of the leaders inside our nutrition service department, and housed at the high school, Lori is instrumental in the meals and the services that we provide to our 9 through 12 high school students. But it's also important to note that Lori is a district level leader as well, and is really in charge of the inventory and the stockpiles that we're creating to feed our kids each and every single day. And as you see on the news, finding food is very difficult. And the great thing about having Lori Dyson on our team is that she fights, scraps, claws, argues, debates, cajoles, and so many other things to make sure that the Estacada School District is prioritized when it comes to making sure we get what we need to serve, especially our most vulnerable students. And this recognition was noted by the Nutrition Employee of the Year, which Lori was awarded by the School Nutrition Association of the Northwest Region. So we in our school district have the Northwest Regional's best nutrition services program. Anything you'd like to say, Lori?
I don't know. It's been fun, and I try to keep it fun. Try to get along with everybody. That doesn't always happen, but we all try to squeeze together. The kids are always nice. I love seeing the little ones grow up. Now that I'm at the level, I've got some kiddos that I used to serve in elementary. They're going through the high school now, and I don't know. Yeah. Getting food's been interesting. We're making it work.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Well, we're lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to very quickly echo the sentiments of the Board of Directors in thanking our high school for a great graduation. Again, just a great example of being flexible and keeping our kids and our families and that recognition at the forefront as we adjust the locations of our graduation. So I do want to personally thank Amy Hudson, the principal, and the leadership team for the great work in planning and preparation with unknown weather factors. We also, on behalf of the board and myself, must thank our employees who did the heavy lifting to get each and every kid who walked across that stage there, from the gaps, from the challenges, from the love and support. All employees inside our school district had a hand in each kid who walked across that stage, and that's very impressive. I also thought that our grounds looked impeccable for that, and just a huge thank you to our 3-person grounds and facilities team that worked overtime and around the clock to make sure that our community got to experience and enjoy our school district facilities, their school district facilities, and I was just very proud of the product that they created back there. It was very cool. I also want to thank the board, all of you, for your support, guidance, and counsel in regard to contractual negotiations with all of our employees. This was a big spring for us as we had the opportunity to work with each sector, each employee sector, and their contracts. It's not often that we deal with everybody all in one year. So this was a very big high-impact year as we tried to make sure that we have competitive wages, that we can keep our talent inside this school district, as well as make sure that everyone who works for us has a livable wage in a crazy inflation time. And so I just want to thank the Board of Directors for their guidance and counsel as we also tried to be mindful and fiduciarily responsible of the taxpayers' dollars. I want to thank the Teachers Union and their collaborative work. You may see some nasty things on the news about teachers' unions in different districts. That was not the case in the Estacada School District. We worked very hard together. We were focused on kids. We were trying to be financially responsible, but still provide a livable wage. And I'm thankful for the conversations that we had in that regard. I also want to thank the OSEA contract membership group, and this is a very diverse group of employees, from bus drivers to building secretaries to kitchen staff to custodial. We worked very hard in a very challenging time to make sure not only were we providing a livable wage, but also trying to make sure that our market adjustments were competitive. Because just because they're a bus driver, the world of professional drivers is extremely scarce. And not only do we compete with other people who drive yellow vehicles, we also compete against 18-wheelers and other different delivery industries to make sure that our wage is competitive. And we worked very hard to do that while still being fiscally responsible. Two more, as you saw, the Fed raised the interest rates 0.75 today as the Estacada School District prepares for its financial future. The Estacada School District is concerned about the economy over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. And while we're pleased we've been able to make the market adjustments to meet the needs of our employees and be competitive, it's also important to recognize that really from this point moving forward, we need to probably get extremely conservative as to how we allocate these funds in anticipation for continued rising costs and other different economic factors that could impact an agency or an organization that is 100% tax-base funded. And so with that being said, I am declaring effective immediately that the Estacada School District is going to begin tightening its hatches in terms of our expenditures to make sure that we're prioritizing the kids in the classroom, but also preparing for what we think could be a potential economic downfall. And I want to make sure that our school district is well equipped and prepared to handle anything economically that comes our way so that we can continue to prioritize the 5-star service we're trying to create, which you saw in our reports today. And lastly, I had a great meeting, I would say 2 weeks ago, with Director Martinez. I really appreciated that one-on-one meeting that we had together. And I just wanted to share an update that Director Martinez and I are working to provide better supports for all of our families in different ways. And just a quick update on some of the actions that we're trying to improve is increasing our postage and our signage up in front of all buildings for families who do not speak English as their first language, and we want to make sure that all families who encounter our schools have the opportunity to receive that 5-star service we're trying to put together. And so we have a great employee who is working with a lot of our bilingual and different lingual families, and we want to make sure that as parents strive for help, support, and access to our school districts, that we can point them in a very convenient direction to get that support that they need. And so we're in the process and are just about completed with ensuring that the contact information and the reach out points are in those. So I wanted to update with you on that and also share with the remainder of the board the intentional work that we're doing to improve our services. And thank you, Director Martinez, for your help and advocacy for that. That is your superintendent's report.
All right. Questions? All right, on to item F, reports and presentations, the renaming of Rivermill Elementary Multi-Purpose Room. And I have 3 people listed, so I'm just going to say, come on down and introduce yourselves. It looks like it's Trevor Searing.
It's one tonight.
It's one tonight, all right.
Yeah, I was going to have a 5th grade grade
Can you pull that microphone? Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to have a fifth grade student join us, and then obviously Rhea Root is here too, but she gave blood today, so she's not feeling so well. So, but thank you again for being here tonight and allowing me to come and present. Yes, we are asking for your consideration in naming the multi-purpose room at Rivermill, which consists of the cafeteria as well as the stage. It's one big room, after our late custodian, Victor Kamal Dazul. And just a little background about him, and I know you have seen this too as well. He was a custodian out at Eagle Creek. He started back in 2007. In 2008, he was hired on permanently as a lead custodian there, and he continued to work at Eagle Creek up until 2015. And the summer of that year was when we decided to reopen Rivermill, and he came to Rivermill as our head custodian. He did not just see the job of cleaning up messes. That's what he did not see it as. What he did is he owned every building that he worked in, and he considered them his home. And he took care of every inch of that building with care. And in fact, we have a picture of him. One of the last pictures that John Simpson gave me is him standing in the Rivermill gym, and I'm telling you, that floor shines. I mean, you can see every light ricocheting off of that because he loved to just pour wax onto all the floors. And we loved to walk in. It was like, wow, okay, Victor's been here. So again, he took care of every inch of that school. He considered it his home. He, even during the lunch hour rush, there's lots of spills that happen around the garbage cans, stuff like that. He was quick to clean those up because he did not want anybody to come in and fall. He didn't also want to see a mess. He wanted it clean. One of the other things, too, about Victor is that he really connected with each student, and he made a daily impact on them. He had so much fun learning their names, and he also enjoyed speaking to them in Spanish. And I was told a story this last week by our principal, Jennifer Berman, about how one day she walked in and he had 4 kids sitting there, and he was talking to them in Spanish. They had done something they shouldn't have been doing, and he was talking to them, and she just came in and he was like, I'm getting them to work here, and we're going to fix this situation. They're going to behave the way they need to. Okay. But, just appreciated that it wasn't, again, like, I'm the custodian, I can't talk to kids. He interacted with kids. He said thank you all the time. When they would bring these trays up, he was grabbing those trays, dumping them quick, looking at them in the eye, saying thank you, etc. He was a big believer in our system and supporting our students, their behavioral expectations, and also taught them lifelong skills for their behaviors. At his memorial, his son spoke about how he did not consider himself a custodian to just clean up messes, but a friend to all. And we even, Rhea was going to share tonight too, how he went beyond just the school setting. He would go to actually her house and helped her husband at a couple times, just doing some landscaping things here and there. We as a staff miss him. We valued him. In fact, you probably could have saw us on the street corner several times. When he was at home recovering, we as the staff would go over there and hang up signs, deliver some food. We serenaded him from the sidewalk, and we got to watch him while he stood at his window and, of course, cried, told us he loved us, and waved and all that kind of stuff too. So we are here tonight just asking for your consideration to name the Rivermill multipurpose room the Victor Kamal Dazul multipurpose room. Any questions?
It looks like we have an option of 3 on there, and we're leaning heavily on the third. Is that the correct one?
Yes. Yeah, using his full name, and the idea too is we'd like to bring his wife and son back too whenever that can take place, to just have them be a part of that as well too. And I think that would honor them and their name too and their legacy. All right.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you.
All right, on to item G. So the addition that I added on here was meeting dates. So currently, the school board of directors meets the second Thursday of every month.
Correct.
How long ago did we change that?
My first spring on the board, so 2019?
Okay.
2018, 2019?
So in 2018, 2019, we made that change because one of our directors traveled for work consistently, and it was on the Wednesday that we used to have it on. It was historically, the board meetings date had been the second Wednesday of the month for as long as I can remember. So we made an adjustment to move it to Thursday to ensure that we could have as many board members present. And it has worked well. However, what we are finding, as the board has kind of discussed unofficially, Thursdays are a tough day for several board members that are engaged in community activities. And so I wanted to kick this off to enter discussion of looking to move the board meetings back to the second Wednesday of the month to alleviate conflicts for at least 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 or 5 of us up here. So I'd just like to kick that to the board to have a discussion and see if anybody has questions, concerns, comments that they'd like to make.
I have no concern, I'm retired.
There you go. That's why I didn't call you before we did this, John.
I do like consistency, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that we meet on Thursday nights, and I'm afraid if we change the goalpost, we'll have some problems.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. We had the same conversation when we moved from Wednesdays to Thursdays. And so what I know the district will do is blast that out to families. We will over-communicate that as much as we can, because the last thing we want, and let me back up, that was one of the reasons why we made a permanent change, as opposed to just changing on the times when we had to make that change, because that conversation was had as well, if we can't, we'll just move it to Thursday that week, or that month, and that didn't provide the consistency that we wanted. So in order to provide the consistency and ensure that we've got the best representation of the school board at every meeting, that's why we want to permanently look to move that back to Wednesday, so that we don't have back and forths and changes at the last minute, like this month when we had to kick it to the next week and go to Wednesday due to conflicts. But you guys all found us, so that's good.
Look how many people came on.
Exactly, most in a while.
Better.
So great question, I appreciate that, John.
Say thanks to the board for the time that you were able to change it to Thursdays, and no longer traveling to Utah every Thursday, so that's great.
Is it Wyoming Wednesdays?
Always Wyoming Wednesdays.
I like the idea of the change. I was up for it a few years ago, I think, when we originally kind of talked about it for a little bit, so I'm in favor of the change.
What do you need internally for notice and rollout?
No decision from the board other than your direction to your superintendent to make the necessary changes in communication.
I think anybody other questions, comments, concerns? I'm seeing collective shake of the heads for questions and concerns and nods for, we feel good about it. So yes, Ryan, if you will please move forward with making that
I
change.
can do that. And just to re-communicate, our intention then will be the second Wednesday of every month moving forward, effective July.
Yep. Nobody can have a conflict on that day.
Yeah.
Let me check my
That's never
calendar.
gonna
Not
happen.
until.
All of those responsible for youth athletic leagues on this board, make sure our teams are not on
Make sure
Wednesday
we're
teams.
good to go. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for that. I appreciate it. To Rochelle's point, I think it was a little past due, so I'm glad we finally got to that as we move forward. So, all right, on to item H, hearing of citizens for action items. None for action items, all right. We have a lot of items here. So action items, the consent agenda includes a package of one or more items to be voted on as a unit. However, if any board member is not in favor of one or more agenda items and prefers to take separate action or request to the chair anytime prior to the vote, we'll remove that item for a separate vote. So we are on I-1 for the consent agenda.
Chair Idell, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any conversation, discussion?
Yes, item I-1B in board book shows staff reports, but it only shows classified.
Nice.
I don't know if that's relevant or.
It's not on purpose, it's there, so we'll have to get it on there and reflect that in board book later. Thank you, great
I did
catch.
see the whole one, so it must not.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
All right. right, on to item J, the reopener for collective bargaining agreement.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve the reopener items as listed above within collective bargaining agreement between the Estacada School District and Oregon School Education Association.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded.
Was that Joe or?
I heard
Here's
Joe.
Rosa.
I think
Okay.
Director Martinez.
that one.
Yeah.
Nice job, Rosa. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I don't know if, Ryan, you want to add anything to that? I think you
Nope.
already did in your report. So I would just echo again, Superintendent Carpenter's reports. I appreciate all parties involved, both from a district standpoint and an employee standpoint, for coming together and working together deeply to find a way to make that happen, that both supports the employees and also supports the district from a fiduciary standpoint, so. Okay, it's been moved and seconded and discussed. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
On to item K for the Education Association collective bargaining.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve the Estacada School District and the Estacada Education Association collective bargaining agreement as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of my previous comments also apply to this one, so I won't say them again. Any other
Yep.
discussion?
Thank you for your time and investment in the part of this process as well.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
Okay, on to item L.
Chair Idell, before we get to item L, per policy BBFA, I'd like to declare an actual COI. So I won't participate in any debate, discussion, or voting on item L.
Thank you, Director Berman. And in following suit, per policy BBFA, I'd like to also declare an actual COI and will not participate in any vote, comment, or discussion on item L. So I will pass it to Vice Chair Shibahara.
Thank you. So item L is to approve the recommended changes to the administrative management and confidential employee memorandums of understanding.
Vice Chair Shibahara, I move to approve the recommended changes to the administrative management and confidential employee memorandums of understanding as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
In the world of acronyms, COI is conflict of interest, just for the record.
That's helpful. Thank you. All right. No discussion. It's been moved, second, and discussed. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Carries.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair Shibahara. On to item M, to approve Resolution 2022-5.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve Resolution 2022-5, a resolution to adopt budget appropriations of funds, impose taxes, and categorize taxes for the fiscal year of 2022-23.
Second.
Oh, no, Joe, I said second.
Vice Chair
Got it.
Shibahara gets the second.
Yep.
It's been moved and seconded. I would like to start by giving a big wholehearted thank you to the Budget Committee. So a lot of time and effort is spent. So the Budget Committee is made up of not only board members, but volunteers from the community that participate at a very deep level
Yes.
of going through, understanding the budget, assigning the budget. It is much more difficult than you would think. We're using estimated numbers, so there's a lot of questions of if it's estimated, then how can we do this? And there's calendars and everything that come into play with that. So, but this is the fullest Budget Committee I think
Correct.
we've had in my time on the board, for sure. So, so I can't say it enough. Please, if you see them on the street, if you see them in the grocery store, buy them a coffee, tell them thank you, but a big thank you to the Budget Committee because they really did a great job this year. So that's my discussion.
So basically, this has been presented to us because it has been approved by the Budget Committee and is now
Yep.
here for the board for final approval.
That's right.
Final adoption.
Adoption.
Yes.
Adoption. Thank you for the word.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, All in favor of item M, please raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
On to item N, goes along with the budget, but to approve Resolution 2022-6.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve Resolution 2022-6, a resolution of imposing taxes and categorizing of taxes for the fiscal year of 2022-2023.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is just I don't want to say formality, but it really is, right? We can't change this, right? It's
Correct.
It's to pay our debt, so, yeah. We're responsible for paying our debt, yes.
We could change it, but we might get in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification, Director. Okay, discussed. Anything else? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. On to item O, we're getting closer, to approve Resolution 2022-7 as presented.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve Resolution 2022-7 as presented.
Moved
Second,
and seconded.
what is 2022?
It was the instruction to sports services and instruction to
Here's the transfer. Do you want to take that,
community.
Christina?
Yeah, great question. It's just to move the appropriations based upon where actual spending is happening in both the general fund and in our special revenue fund. And I kind of showed you that when we did the budget to actuals, that our support services was really getting close to the limits, and I want to make sure that we stay within appropriation. So that's why I'm recommending that in both funds.
Staying ahead of that also keeps us in good graces with the auditors, right? So-
Correct. If we did go over our budget amount, it would be a finding.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
On to item P, the renaming of the River Mill multipurpose room.
Chair Rydell, I move to approve the naming of the Rivermill Elementary Multipurpose Room, the Victor Kamal Dazul Multipurpose Room.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? I think Trevor did a great job, so.
We lost a loved family member, and this is a great way to honor his service to our kids and our community.
Just to add, I have an 8th grader and he went to Rivermill, and he had always mentioned Victor, and I don't know who he was talking about until
Yeah.
I
This is
actually met
Victor.
Victor face to face. So yeah, it's amazing. Thank you for bringing that, Trevor.
Yeah.
And please let us know when that is
Yes.
planned for. Okay, we need to stop crying, or talking, because I'm gonna start crying, so. Any other discussion that we need to do here? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
On to item Q.
Chair Adele, I move to approve the superintendent's contract for 2022 to 2025 pending agreed-upon amendment to Section 7B.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I would just like to thank the Board of Directors for the thoughtful inquiry and conversation that we have around that. The superintendent is our one employee, and so that one employee deserves our full attention and due diligence to ensure that we are doing our job to setting him up for success and setting the district up for success. So thank you all for that. I appreciate it. Any other discussion? Good. Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand.
Carries.
On to item R, hearing of citizens for non-action items.
5 more baseballs.
Want to start here?
Yeah, so we have some.
We do.
Okay.
We have 3 over here,
Okay,
Awesome.
over here and,
and then you have,
oh, then I have, yes, I have one as well.
then
Thank
you have one as well.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to read my paragraph that some of you have heard before, so I'm going to read that. As a board, we appreciate and encourage public input. However, Oregon public meeting law requires that these sessions be held in public. This is a meeting in public. It is not a public meeting. The primary difference being that public input may be requested or allowed, but it is not required under the law. In other words, you have the right to view, but not necessarily participate. Policy BDDH is the guide for public participation. In essence, it states that citizens must sign up in advance of the beginning of the regular meeting for an opportunity to speak. At all times, your comments are to be addressed directly to the board. Speaking time will be limited to 3 minutes or less. Those with common topic of interest are asked to combine comments where possible, designate topic at time of sign-up, and stay on topic. Any items already directed to the Office of the Superintendent for review will not be heard in board session. Finally, neither the board nor district personnel are expected or required to respond to comments and/or questions during the board meetings. So it is 3 minutes. I will give anybody time to introduce themselves, so that does not come out of your 3 minutes. But when 3 minutes is up, I will say thank you, and we will move to the next person who has signed up. So just as a forewarning, you will have some lights up there once it turns red. I think it's once it turns red, right? Once it turns red, that's 3, and it will be on the dot 3. I also, for the group, we did have a community member sign up to speak, but is not able to be here tonight. So in lieu of that, I will be reading a message that they sent in. I also would like 3 minutes on my reading, to be fair. So I will read relatively quickly, but not so fast we can't get it. I hope I can get through it, but it applies to those who submitted in writing as well as those who are here in person. So, first up, I'll do this one last.
Oh, okay. We have Colleen Hamilton.
All right, Colleen Hamilton, come on up.
Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Colleen Hamilton. I live in Oregon City and have nephews in Estacada schools. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to first acknowledge Estacada schools. I've heard lots of good things about the system here in Estacada and the hard work and dedication of the school board. I just want to bring a few things to your attention now before what I've seen in other school districts, they get out of hand and they need attention. Estacada School District's mission is, and I quote, "to equip all students with the knowledge and skills necessary to be successful." There are inclusive topics such as the LGBT that do not belong in schools as they cause unwarranted confusion, distrust, secrecy from parents, and take away quality teaching time. We do not want our tax dollars used for topics that do not, as Estacada's mission states, further skills necessary to become successful. You might ask if the LGBT agenda is being promoted in Estacada schools. Well, it has come to my attention that this agenda has peeked its ugly head into a few of our classrooms. We must stop it now before this political agenda starts to infiltrate everything in our schools. I will show you picture evidence after my talk of some of the LGBT and BLM grooming in our classrooms and special lunchtime groups, and the K through 12 book list from our school libraries. Many of the books delivered to the schools from the Oregon Department of Education and book publishers are LGBT grooming for grades K through 12. Some teachers and staff want nothing more to promote their personal agenda. The moment you open this door to this kind of nonsense leads to more, or it will infiltrate our schools and our children's lives. Each step of indoctrination leads to more and bigger problems. We have seen it happen in Newburgh. As the Pride and BLM flags went up, the American flags came down because they said the American flag was too controversial. Classroom walls were plastered with gay everything, and BLM and their Marxist ideology was stamped with approval. That movement led to firings, recall efforts, and community chaos. You do not want that here. I urge the Estacada School Board to take action. Talk with your superintendent, principals, staff, and teachers now. Let them know that you do not allow the slow liberal decay of Estacada schools. Parents, family, and concerned citizens need to speak up and stand up for constitutional history.
Thank you, Colleen.
And basic reading.
Thank you, Colleen.
Okay,
I
I'm going
appreciate it.
to show you the books, and the last, I will leave the list with you. You can
Okay.
show that. This is a list that, and these I need to take back.
If you can, I'm sorry, you can't come up to approach the board. I'm sorry, that's not the way this works. So,
Okay, if you can,
so if you want to leave them, we will be happy to take a peek at them.
okay, thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Colleen. All right,
Up next, we have Tanya Streifel.
Tanya, come on up.
Hello. Okay, I'm Tanya Streifel. I'm a mom of 2 kids in the school district, and I also work at Rivermill with one of the best bosses, Trevor. So I also have a couple books which I will be handing out that you guys can take a look at. I did glean these from Rivermill. I believe these ones were there and they didn't know they were there. It's kind of one of those things where you might read a title, but you don't know what's in it. And I think that's something that's on the radar right now with our district. There are some questions that I've had answered speaking with Mrs. Berman. And so we've gone through with at least knowing there are some action items coming, but it's so new. There's a new path. So I do have a question and I have a request. The Rainbow Lunch were at the Estacada Middle School, which is where my son attends. I've had discussions with Mr. Hargrave and Carpenter, and we kind of gleaned from that conversation that it's evolved. It's a group that's evolved versus the LGBTQ movement, the rainbow movement, and it's more of a safe space for kids that feel bullied and don't feel welcome in the normal lunchroom. And so my request, because we are an inclusive district, we want all kids to feel welcome and safe, that we could change the name as of next year to something that's more inclusive, to include more kids versus just kids that identify as something else or have sexual preferences that don't necessarily meet the needs of most of the kids that maybe are attending. I think that would be fair, and I think that would meet the needs of our kids better. And then if there is a bullying issue, maybe we could identify where the root of that is, and we can take care of those kids better. As for the books, I will leave those here. I also have some questions in regards to the new Biden administration push, which I'm hoping to alleviate with Carpenter at a later time. But in regards to the books, these are books that my kids own. This is the Captain Underpants author. I read it last night to my 13-year-old, and we both were in shock and awe. And it's so sad to me that these people we trust are sending us books because we trust them with our kids. And I have to protect my kids online all the time. I have to protect what they see on the media. And now I have to worry about the books that they are finding in our libraries, where we have no intention, I know that, in this school district, to give our kids inappropriate content that I've seen. And so it baffles me that we have to take a step further to protect our kids. But I know that this school district will do the right thing, and I will do whatever I can to help as a parent and as an employee. So thank you all for your time, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
And the third one is me, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm not going to look up, so somebody yell at me when it's 3 minutes.
Oh, I have one more.
Oh, you have
Fourth
one more?
one,
Oh,
yes.
You're the
sorry, my bad.
Tom McEnany?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Okay,
We get a face-to-face.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
okay, great. But thank you for being here, Tom. We appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to read this email as well as I can. So, my name is Christy Jackson. My home address is in Estacada. I won't read that out loud. I'll be addressing equity and accessible entrances, exits for all the schools. I'm coming to you as a parent of 3 children who attend the Estacada School District. Next school year, I will have a child at Clackamas River, EMS, and EHS. My youngest is severely disabled, and I am disappointed at the lack of accessibility to the middle school and high school. We attend several events for our older children that our youngest is also in attendance for. The last choir concert we attended, we had to enter at the back of the middle school in the only accessible door, which was locked. It is nearly impossible to get a large, heavy wheelchair up the front steps of the middle school. When we attended eighth grade night, we exited a door to view the auto shop classroom and had no choice but to make our way down a muddy, grassy hill because the only option was stairs. I am deeply passionate about advocating for the disabled community. I wrote and published a children's book titled Just Like You to help others understand that children and individuals like my daughter are the same as all of you. She just does things differently. I'm on the board of directors for 2 local nonprofits, Harper's Playground and Smile Oregon, who make it their mission to provide accessible play and inclusive healthcare. My daughter deserves and is entitled to have access just the same as any typical human being. We should not have to be ushered to the back alleyway to enter an event and have to awkwardly make our way up the aisleway in the auditorium after finding out the door to the entrance was locked. This is district discrimination to anybody in a wheelchair attending any of the school events. My ask is that you do better and make it a priority to create equitable entrances in front of the schools where everyone else enters. I understand the middle school is historical, but frankly, so are the inadequate and inaccessible entrances, and it's time an update was made. I will not sit back quietly and continue to be silent about an issue that not only affects our family, but the families of so many other students who attend our schools. Thank you for your time.
Nice job.
I was trying really hard to make sure we didn't get cut off. So, thank you, Christy, for submitting that and giving us the opportunity for you to be heard. Okay, we are on to item S, adjournment. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you very much. Have a great night.